What's up, everyone? We're back for our slightly belated Round 3 NHL pod to talk about the conference finals. It's going to be a little bit shorter, obviously, since there's less to talk about. However, I will be putting out a NHL award ballot podcast at some point, probably after the Stanley Cup finals, to make up for the short length of these podcasts now. And I'm recording this on a Wednesday morning. Hopefully there will be gameplay in the background of this. I'm not 100% sure yet, so don't super expect anything. But we'll talk about the conference finals. Each series is tied 1-1 right now. And I meant to record this a couple days ago when they just played the first games of each series, but I got super busy. And then I meant to record it Monday night, but then the Oklahoma City Golden State game was on, and then I went to sleep after that ended, and I got busy the next couple days. So this is the first kind of window of time that I've had to actually capitalize on and record this, where I wasn't recording something else or doing work on a different, more important video. I've been super busy lately. So anyway, we will get into the Western Conference first. We'll talk about St. Louis and San Jose. This is the series that I expected to happen once Nashville won. As I said in the last video, I said if Nashville won their first round series, then they would lose in the second round, even though I didn't want them to. I was actually rooting for them in Game 7. However, they kind of no-showed it. So the San Jose Sharks are in the conference finals with the St. Louis Blues, who I think were widely expected. I think it was a shock to a lot of people that it even went to Game 7, but I think that also kind of speaks to the strength of the choke potential of St. Louis, that Dallas even pushed it to 7 games. Because I know a lot of people thought that it was going to be not a rollover really for St. Louis, but I don't think a lot of people thought it was going to be a hard series for them to win it all. So it's kind of surprising that went to a Game 7. But we're here because of 2 Game 7s. Could have been 3, but Washington decided to no-show overtime in Game 6, even though the refs were trying to hand them the game, which is something I'm not going to talk about in this video. You can save that for a different day. But we'll talk about Western Conference first. St. Louis and San Jose. So they played 2 games in St. Louis, and then each team won a game. And now they are tied 1-1 heading back to San Jose. And that kind of puts the series in the Sharks' favor in my mind. We'll see what they can do at home. I think it's pretty conceivable that they can take a 3-1 lead in this series, especially since St. Louis has a lot of past demon choke potential. And they're really only here at this point, I think a lot of people believe this, because LA lost in the first round to San Jose, mind you. So San Jose is kind of overachieved in this playoff run, and St. Louis did beat the other odds-on favorite in the West, Chicago. So there is a lot of that too. But I really don't think if LA won their first round series that this would be much of a conversation to have. And I don't really think a lot of people expected St. Louis to even win in the first round. Like maybe a few St. Louis fans here and there. Not a lot of serious like hockey fans or analysts or anything like that I really saw the opinions of would say that this was going to be a St. Louis over Chicago series. That's talking about the past rounds though. We're here now in the conference finals. And San Jose, I think, has a pretty decent chance to win this round. And St. Louis has a decent chance to win this round, too. I'd put it at less. I have to look at how San Jose played at home, but I think they've been pretty good this playoffs. They won a Game 7 at home in the last round, very convincingly. I don't think they've lost at home in the first round, if I recall correctly. Because they played LA, and I think that LA only won in LA. And the closeout game was also in LA, or it was in San Jose. I'm not 100% sure if that's how it went down, though. I'm going to take a look right now as I fire up my Yahoo Sports app to see what's. So they lost. Yeah, they lost at home in overtime in the first round. They've just been a really good road team this year, and they lost. Yeah, they've only lost 1 game at home in the entire playoffs. Every other game at home they won, and that was an overtime game. So they've been playing relatively well at home. Going back to the start of this playoffs, they are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5-1 at home, or 5-0-1 because of NHL overtime losses count separately, but that doesn't really matter because it's the playoffs. So they've been playing relatively well at home. I give them a decent chance to take a 3-1 lead in this series. They play on Thursday again, and then Saturday night. I'll probably be watching both of those games, depending Because the problem that I've had with the Pittsburgh Tampa Bay series, I really wanted to watch it. I haven't gotten a chance to watch either game yet. One Saturday night was really busy. I believe when it's or Sunday night, or was it Saturday? I don't remember what night it was. Friday night, yeah, that's right, Friday. And then the other night when it was on, it was against the Oklahoma City San Antonio game, so I didn't catch a whole lot of it. It was I probably caught about 10 minutes collectively between the two games, but I did see the final outcomes, and I saw kind of how the games were going just from Twitter and various other things. So I haven't gotten a chance to watch that one yet, but that's been an interesting one too. San Jose, I'll go back. I keep getting off track with San Jose, St. Louis. So I'm gonna finally make a pick. I'm gonna take San Jose in 6. I think they're gonna win both home games, and I think that St. Louis is gonna win one on the road or one at home in regulation by like 3 goals, and then San Jose is gonna come back and just play a really. Maybe not. I don't know. It's hard to tell. This playoffs has been so weird. There's a lot of all the favorite teams to win have been knocked out. Pittsburgh's probably out of the 4 the highest odds to win, which we'll get to in a couple minutes. I'll take San Jose in 6. However, I could see it being St. Louis in 7 if San Jose somehow loses a game at home. I don't think it'll happen, but it did happen in round 1 against the Kings, who are an equally talented team as St. Louis, in my opinion. So that's that. So we'll talk finally about the Eastern series, which I have more stock in because I watch Eastern Conference hockey all season. I don't really watch the West, which is why I only got 2 first-round series right in the West this year, and I got, I think, 3 or 4 in the East. I think the only one I got wrong was Islanders over Florida, if I recall correctly. But and I watched the East all year, and I'm really invested in a lot of these teams, at least the good teams. So we'll talk about Pittsburgh, Tampa Bay. Pittsburgh lost one at home, the first game. Ben Bishop went out for Tampa Bay, and I originally, when I intended to make this podcast, I originally was going to take Tampa in 6. I thought they win one in Pittsburgh, and then it would be not really close, and it would turn out a lot like Washington's did, but the other way, where Washington was the team that gave up the 3-1 lead. I thought Pittsburgh was going to do it this round. Tampa Bay's played, I believe, really weird. They lost 1 game at home in the second round to the Islanders, but other than that, they're like San Jose. They won every game at home. I think 5-0, or no, there's 3-0 at home, or 4-0. Excuse me, 4-1, not 4-0, 4-1, because they played 3 first round home game series because that was only a 5-game series against the Red Wings. So I was really going back and forth on this prediction for quite a while, and these two teams are arguably equal talent-wise, and the question of who's going to be in goal for Pittsburgh is really big. I think that having Vasilevsky instead of Ben Bishop isn't necessarily the end of the world for Tampa Bay. I think he's an adequate replacement, and I've done a lot of deep diving on prospects for that organization because the minor league team plays in a town that was close to where I grew up, and they were our minor league hockey team for years. And so it's just ironic that the affiliation was when I moved. That was before Utica got a team. Utica's closer to where I used to live anyway. But Syracuse is the team that I'm referring to as the minor league Tampa Bay team. It just happened to be coincidental that when we moved to Tampa, that was the team that was the major league affiliate of the minor league team. So Vasilevsky's a pretty good goalie. He's not obviously Ben Bishop. I think should win the Vezina this year. I think he was definitely better than Braden Holtby stats wise. I think he was the most deserving. And you can't say that the backup is just as good. Otherwise, he wouldn't be a backup. That's not necessarily true, but that's just kind of the general. That's kind of the general thought process of that. So, yeah, I think that Vasilevsky doesn't hurt them necessarily as much as if they still have Matteo Garon, who I actually saw play when he was on Tampa Bay when I went to a game. So it's hard to tell. This is really a series that could be determined by the flip of a coin. These two teams are almost equally talented. I think the fact that Crosby and Malkin have pretty much no-showed the playoffs puts them on the same kind of level as Tampa Bay missing Stamkos. If you took these teams at full health and added in playoff Kessel, I think that this would no doubt be a Penguins series. and I'm going to say that it still is just because of the goalie thing. Because even if Penguins have a problem in goal, they have one of the 5 best goalies in the league sitting on the bench because of his concussion issues in the past to start the playoffs. And Matt Murray has been extremely solid, and he's actually part of the reason that I'm thinking that Vasilevsky might not be the worst thing in the world. He only gave up 3 goals in an overtime game, which is, it's not an awful stat. He had like a 927. He saved, I think, 38 out of 41. And Murray, I think, only had like 19 out of 20. He didn't see a lot of shots. He didn't play super well, but he played just well enough to. Pittsburgh's defense has been really good throughout the playoffs, I thought, and I don't know if that was just the speed, because Washington, when they played, Washington weren't a team built to beat the Penguins. They're very slow and deliberate. They don't have a lot of athleticism. Like a couple fast guys on the team, and obviously Ovechkin's one of the fastest players. Maybe not now, but he's one of the fastest players ever to play that position. Maybe not now, but like when he came into the league, that was one of his calling cards, was his speed, and it's kind of bogged down now the way that they've made him play in this system that makes absolutely no sense for him. But that's a different story for a different day. Like I said before, I thought that, and I think that Pittsburgh's not gonna beat Tampa Bay just with speed. Tampa Bay's got a few guys who are pretty fast, and Stamkos might come back this series too, which I think would be a big boost for Tampa Bay's offense, because they have been pretty decent this playoffs, but it's not like they're getting goals that are really like coming easy to them, and they had to play 2 overtime games in the last round to beat the Islanders, and it was just I think it was just luck that the Islanders lost both of them. Because the Islanders easily could have won both of those overtime games. They were at home for the Islanders too. I don't think that the Islanders series is as much of a rollover as everyone else kind of did. It was not a very good series by any means, but it wasn't like they beat the Islanders easily. I think Tampa Bay is one of the worst teams to make the conference finals in recent memory, because, or this specific situation that Tampa Bay is in where they reached the conference finals is one of the worst in recent history, because Florida was the 1 seed and they lost to the Islanders, and then the Islanders turned into a completely different team in the second round and just decided to completely self-combust, basically. And the Islanders had like the advantage early on. They won the first game 5-3, but they just, I don't know. Not having Florida in the second round, I think, really changed the composure of this play. This playoffs was really weird because no 1 seed is left. All the 1 seeds are gone, I'm pretty sure. Because Anaheim was the 1 seed in the bottom. They lost in the first round, and the Dallas Stars are out. They were the only team. They were one of the only teams to make it in the second round. Even Florida lost in the first round to the Islanders. Washington lost in the second round, and Dallas lost in the second round to St. Louis. So there's no 1 seeds. There's no team that's like clearly better than the other in these conference finals. It could really, you can honestly see a San Jose Pittsburgh. You could see San Jose, Tampa Bay. You could see St. Louis, Tampa Bay. You could see St. Louis, Pittsburgh. Like, any of those 4 options is not unseeable, and I think they're all within the grasp of realism. I think it's going to be the Penguins. There's going to be a point in this playoffs, and I think he had a goal in the last game, so this is kind of a good time to make this point. I think there's going to be a point in this playoffs where Sidney Crosby shows up, and Malkin too, to a much bigger extent, because I don't think Malkin scored a point since the first round. And I thought that he ruined their chemistry a lot when he did come back, but Crosby's had points in the first 2 games of this series. So if they don't have to beat them with the depth guys, I think they're in pretty good shape. Although Kessel's been fantastic these playoffs. Really been great. He had 3 points in that elimination game against Washington, and I think he scored in both games of this round too. Malkin's just been weird. It's been strange watching how they use him. I don't think they're using him right, first of all. Second of all, he's just not been as good, and it shows when they're struggling to win these games. If Malkin was playing at Malkin levels, I don't think this would be a debate. I think that Pittsburgh would be in the Stanley Cup Finals pretty easily, but they're not performing up to their level. So if Pittsburgh loses, I'll be severely disappointed too, because they beat Washington, and if Pittsburgh wins the conference, then I can make some sort of excuse for myself. So anyway, that'll do it for the conference finals. I have San Jose in 6, and I have Pittsburgh. I'm going to take them in 6 or 7, excuse me. Just I think the split kind of screwed up their whole I think they have to split in Tampa, and then it's gonna be 1-1-1 from there on out. I think Pittsburgh's gonna take 7 though. So that'll do it for the conference finals, or the conference finals pod. We'll come back for a Stanley Cup final pod, and that will probably not be this long. I didn't even think this one was gonna run this long, but that'll do it for me. Thank you for watching. Hope you enjoy. See you next time.